He realized she was still breathing. The moment hit him like a punch to the chest. Sharp, unexpected, terrifying.
I cannot believe you are doing this right now. We are through.
Because you never take responsibility for anything.
What?
I am sick of it.
40-year-old Mark Turner froze in the dim basement, his hands hovering above his wife's limp body. The extension cord lay in a loose loop beside her head. Her lips were pale. Her skin was cold. But her chest, it moved. Just once. Barely. But it moved. For a brief second, Mark didn't react like a desperate husband relieved his wife was alive. Instead, something dark flashed through his eyes. Something no one in the world would ever expect from a man calling 911 to report his wife's suicide. He stared down at Emily Turner, 37, mother of their 2 kids, quiet, gentle, the type of woman who wrote reminder notes on sticky pads and tucked them into lunchboxes. Another shallow breath came out of her, soft and weak. Mark's jaw clenched. He whispered under his breath, not in relief, but in panic. "No, no, not now, please don't." And then, like a switch flipped, he threw his head back and let out a scream so loud the basement walls rattled. "Help! Somebody help! She's dying!" The scream seemed too rehearsed, too delayed. But for now, there were no witnesses to question it. His phone clattered to the concrete floor as he fumbled for it again. His fingers shook, not from fear, but from urgency of a different kind. He dialed 911, nearly shouting when the operator answered. My wife, she hanged herself. She's not breathing. I'm trying CPR. Please hurry." The operator tried to speak calmly, telling him to check for a pulse, to tilt her airway, to continue compressions. Mark obeyed, but his hands pressed down on her chest with strange force, almost frantic, almost angry. The sound of his palms thudding against her ribcage echoed around the basement. Come on, he muttered, but his voice wavered, not like a man begging his wife to live, but like a man terrified she might. 3 minutes into the call, the operator suddenly asked, "Sir, is she breathing at all?" Mark hesitated. A long, uncomfortable silence. Then, "No, nothing at all." But as he spoke, Emily's chest rose again. Barely noticeable, but real. Mark saw it. His eyes widened, and for a split second, he looked like someone watching their biggest secret claw its way back from the grave. A siren wailed faintly in the distance. Police, EMTs, help. His breathing grew heavier, not with grief, but with dread. One more breath escaped her frail body. Mark stood over her, frozen like a deer caught in headlights, and then, in one single burst of desperation, he pressed both hands around her face, pushing her mouth closed, as if trying to silence the last sign of life. But before anything more could happen, heavy footsteps thundered across the kitchen floor upstairs. Police department. Hello? Anyone down there? Mark sprinted away from her, dropping to his knees and pretending to give CPR again, just in time for Officer Daniel Briggs to appear at the top of the basement stairs. And that was the moment everything changed, because Mark Turner saw something he did not expect. Emily's eyes fluttered. The tiniest movement, weak, barely there, but unmistakable. Officer Briggs hadn't seen it, but Mark had, and for the first time since dialing 911, the fear on his face was real. Not fear of losing her, but fear of what she might say if she lived. "Sir, step aside," the officer ordered, hurrying down the stairs. Mark backed up slowly, breathing hard, staring at his wife as EMTs rushed in behind the officer. One EMT placed fingers against Emily's neck. "I've got a pulse. Faint, but it's there." Mark's head snapped toward him. "What? No, she wasn't, she was gone." Another EMT leaned down. "She's breathing. Barely. Let's move." Mark stumbled backward, grabbing the basement wall as if the world was spinning. His face twisted, not in joy but in horror. Officer Briggs shot him a sharp look. "Sir, this is good news." But to Mark Turner, it was the worst news possible. because moments earlier, he was certain no one would ever hear Emily speak again. And now she was alive. Barely, but alive. The EMTs lifted her onto the stretcher as her chest rose again, weak and uneven. Mark watched, his hands trembling, not with hope but with fear. And that was when Officer Briggs noticed something that didn't make sense. Mark wasn't crying. Not really. His eyes were dry. Bone dry. "Sir," the officer said slowly, "step upstairs with me." Mark swallowed hard, gripping the railing as he followed the officer. His shirt clung to his back with sweat. His heart hammered so loudly he felt like the officer could hear it. When they reached the kitchen, Mark stopped suddenly, rage exploding out of him like a fireball. He slammed his fist into the counter, then into a bowl of chips, then into the wall. Officer Briggs stepped back, startled. "You said she wasn't breathing," the officer said cautiously. "But she is." Mark turned toward him, eyes wild. She's not supposed to be. She was gone. I swear she was gone." "Not supposed to be?" Mark froze. The words hung in the air like smoke. Silence. Heavy. Dangerous. The officer took one slow step closer. "Sir, what exactly do you mean by that?" Mark opened his mouth, but no words came out. Downstairs, the stretcher wheels clattered as EMTs rushed Emily toward the ambulance. She was alive. Barely, but alive. And if she woke up, everything Mark had been trying to hide would come crawling out of the shadows. He knew it. And now Officer Briggs knew something was very, very wrong. As the officer stared at him, suspicion growing by the second, Mark whispered, This wasn't supposed to happen." The officer stiffened. "Mark, what wasn't supposed to happen?" Mark's face twisted. He looked like a man trapped between confession and collapse. And then, footsteps thundered back up the basement stairs. Another officer burst into the room, breathless. "She's moving again." Mark whipped around, eyes wide with dread. "No, I mean, what?" "She is." He tried to sound relieved. He failed. Officer Briggs exchanged a look with the second officer, his eyebrows tightening with concern. Something wasn't adding up. Not Mark's story. Not his behavior. Not his reactions. A husband should have been relieved. But Mark Turner looked terrified. And that's when Officer Briggs asked the question that would change the entire direction of the case. "Mark, what really happened in that basement?" Mark's lips parted. His face drained of color. And for the first time, he seemed completely unable to speak, as if the truth were pounding on the inside of his skull, but he couldn't let it out. Because the moment he did, everything would unravel. The basement, the cord, the lies. The part he didn't want anyone to know. Emily was alive. And that meant the Real story was about to come out. But before Mark could answer, an officer shouted from the doorway, "She's crashing. We need to go, now." The EMTs rushed Emily into the ambulance. Mark lunged toward the door instinctively, but Officer Briggs blocked him with an outstretched arm. "Not yet," the officer said. "We're not done here." Mark stopped, frozen, breathing shaking, eyes flickering with panic, because deep down, he knew exactly what was coming next. And it wasn't help. It was the truth. And the truth was about to bury him alive. Detective Marcus Hale hit pause on the laptop so fast the room fell silent like someone had yanked the air out of it. The image froze on the screen. The woman's jaw stretched unnaturally wide, her fingers digging into the cat's fur, her eyes looking almost empty. Nobody in the room spoke. Not the rookie officer who had nearly thrown up. Not the sergeant gripping the edge of the desk like it might run away. And definitely not Marcus, who had just realized they weren't dealing with any normal crime scene anymore. He swallowed hard, pushed his glasses up, and forced himself to breathe. "Okay," he whispered, voice shaking only a little, "we need to understand what we're looking at." The calm before the next shock. 2 hours earlier, things had been much simpler. Marcus only knew. A neighbor had reported screaming. A woman was found wandering with blood on her hands, and a dead cat was discovered nearby. Nobody expected this. Nobody expected footage. The officers who picked her up didn't even know she had a camera. It wasn't until her bag was searched that they found the tiny body cam clipped inside. A body cam she had intentionally turned on. A body cam that recorded everything. Marcus played the clip again. Only 5 seconds this time, skimming past the moment she lunged at the cat. He paused at a frame where her face came close to the camera. Her expression was not animalistic, not angry. It was blank, completely blank, like someone had hollowed her out and left only a body moving on autopilot. "What happened to her?" the rookie whispered. Marcus didn't know, but he intended to find out. The first clue that didn't make sense. They placed the camera on the evidence table. The sergeant slid a folder over. "This is the victim," he said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Victim?" "Yes," the sergeant replied. "She's not a suspect anymore. Not after what we found in her apartment." Marcus froze. "What did you find?" The sergeant sighed. "Her cat." Marcus blinked. "So the cat she ate?" The sergeant shook his head. "No. The one she ate wasn't hers. Her own cat was found dead at home. Same injuries. Same everything." A cold chill crawled up Marcus's spine. So she ate her own cat first, then went outside and found another? The room went still. Nobody wanted to say yes, but they all knew. Something was deeply wrong here. Something beyond mental illness. Something planned. The camera footage alone proved that. The scream they didn't notice at first. Marcus rewound again, slowing the footage down frame by frame. He watched the woman breathing heavily. He watched her eyes dart around. He watched her drag the stray cat closer. And then he heard it. It was faint, barely noticeable. A sound underneath her panting. A whisper. A whisper that was not her voice. Marcus leaned forward. "Do you hear that?" The rookie nodded shakily. "Yeah, but it doesn't sound human." They turned up the volume. The whisper became clearer. A voice, low and raspy, saying something they couldn't fully understand. But it kept repeating. Over and over. Like a command. Marcus felt the hair on his arms stand up. "This wasn't random," he whispered. "She was being told to do it." The rookie stepped back. "Told? By who?" Marcus stared at the frozen screen. At the woman's blank face. At the whisper coming from nowhere. He didn't know. But he knew they were no longer dealing with just a disturbing crime. They were dealing with something that had a voice. Something unseen. The final moments of Chapter 2. The footage glitches. Marcus hit play again. And as the woman lifted the cat toward her mouth, the screen glitched. Not the normal kind of glitch. Not static. Not distortion. A face flashed for a split second. A face that did not belong to the woman. A face that did not belong to any person in the footage. Eyes black. Skin pale. Mouth stretched too wide. It stared directly into the camera. Directly at Marcus. As if it knew he was watching. The rookie screamed. The sergeant stepped back. Marcus slammed the laptop shut, heart racing. "What was that?" the rookie whispered. Marcus didn't answer. Because he didn't know. Because he wasn't sure he wanted to know. But one thing was clear. Whatever was in that footage was not human. And it was watching them back. The woman sat in interview room 4 like someone dropped her there and forgot to turn her back on. Hands folded. Eyes empty. Breathing slow and shallow. Detective Marcus Hale watched her through the one-way glass. She didn't look dangerous now. She didn't look like the person who attacked 2 cats and recorded it. She looked lost. Almost like she was waiting for permission to exist. Marcus walked into the interview room with a small folder and a recorder. He sat down opposite her. "Ma'am," he said gently, "do you know why you're here?" Her eyes lifted, slow and heavy. "No." "You don't remember what happened outside your apartment?" "No." "What about this camera?" he asked, placing the body cam gently on the table. She stared at it. Her face didn't change. Not even a blink. Then she whispered, barely moving her lips. "It made me hungry." Marcus stiffened. "The camera?" She nodded once. "It told me to eat." Marcus exchanged a quick glance with the officer observing behind the glass. Not normal behavior. Not a normal statement. But her next line shook him deeper than anything in the footage. "I didn't want to eat them, but my teeth weren't mine." Marcus leaned forward slightly. "Your teeth?" "Yes," she said, voice cracking for the first time. "They were sharp, too sharp, they hurt. I felt them growing." A chill spread across Marcus's spine. In the footage, her teeth had looked normal. But in the frame right before the glitch, they had looked wrong. Like they didn't belong to her. Marcus kept his voice steady. "What's the last thing you remember before everything went black?" She closed her eyes tight, as though trying to stop something from crawling back into her mind. Then she whispered, a voice behind me saying, "Look." Marcus froze. That word. That single word. He had heard it too. In the footage. A whisper under the video. Repeating itself. He swallowed hard. Whose voice was it? She shook her head violently. "I don't know. It wasn't a person. It was behind my eyes." Behind her eyes? Marcus scribbled notes, but his mind was racing. This wasn't psychosis. It wasn't drugs. It wasn't splitting personalities. Her reactions were too calm, too consistent, too external. Something else was inside this. Something using her body like a puppet. A knock came on the interview room door. An officer slipped in a small evidence bag. Marcus opened it. Inside was a tiny black plastic chip. "What's this?" Marcus asked. The officer replied quietly, "We took apart the camera she had. This wasn't supposed to be inside it." Marcus frowned and turned the chip over. No brand. No markings. Just a matte black surface. "We ran it through our tech guys," the officer continued. "It wasn't made for a camera. It wasn't made for any device we recognize. And it wasn't connected to anything." Marcus looked up slowly. "Then how was it running?" The officer swallowed. "That's the part we can't explain. It was warm." Marcus set the chip on the table in front of the woman. Her reaction was instant, like a switch had been flipped. She yanked her hands back and pressed herself into the corner of the room, shaking violently. "No. No, no, no," she cried. "Take it away. It's watching, it's watching." Marcus grabbed the chip immediately, shoving it back into the evidence bag. The moment it left the table, she stopped screaming. Just stopped. Fell quiet. Collapsed back into the chair. Silent. Empty. Like nothing happened. Marcus's heart hammered. Whatever that chip was, she recognized it, even if she didn't know what it was. Marcus rushed back to the tech room. "Run diagnostics again," he ordered. "Check every file." The tech analyst nodded. "I already did." "But, sir, something new happened." "What?" Marcus asked. The tech analyst slowly swiveled his monitor around. A new file had appeared. Time-stamped 20 minutes ago. While nobody was touching the camera. While the woman was already in custody. And the title, "Look _ this.mp4. Marcus's blood went cold. "What's inside?" he whispered. The tech analyst pressed play. The screen turned black. A single whisper came through the speakers. "Marcus." Marcus stumbled back. The voice knew his name. It wasn't the woman's voice. It wasn't anyone at the station. The screen flickered, and the same horrific pale face from earlier filled the entire monitor. This time, it was smiling. The tech room fell so silent that even the hum of the computers felt louder than usual. Marcus stared at the pale, smiling face on the monitor. Eyes black, lips stretched too far, skin smooth like wet clay. It wasn't a human face, and it wasn't a glitch. It was looking at him. The tech analyst's voice trembled. "Sir, I swear, this file wasn't here before." Marcus stepped closer, though every instinct screamed to step back. The face on the screen didn't blink. didn't move, didn't distort, just stared, as if it was waiting for him to do something. Then the audio changed. Soft static, a low hum, a whisper, closer than before, like it was inside the room with them. Marcus. The lights flickered. The screen flashed white for half a second. When the picture returned, the face was gone, replaced by video footage. Footage taken inside the police station. The camera was moving through the hallways, smoothly, like someone was floating with it. It drifted past officers who didn't seem to notice it, past the waiting area, past the interrogation rooms. Then it turned toward interview room 4, the room where the woman sat alone. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. The camera feed moved through the wall like it wasn't even there. And then the woman appeared on screen, sitting exactly as they left her. Except now, she was smiling the exact same smile as the face earlier. Wide, unnatural. Her eyes turned directly toward the lens, even though she should not have known a camera was there. Then her mouth opened, wider and wider, far more than any human mouth could. The tech analyst gasped and stumbled back. A voice seeped out of the speakers. Not her voice. The same voice from earlier. "She sees you, Marcus." Marcus slammed the laptop shut so hard the entire desk shook. The analyst jumped. "Detective, what is happening?" he stammered. Marcus didn't answer. His mind was racing, and fear was crawling under his skin like insects. This wasn't a normal crime. This wasn't even possession. This was something else, something using technology like a doorway. He grabbed the evidence bag with the camera. "We're shutting this room down. Don't touch anything else. Log off every device, kill the power if you have to. No one looks at that footage again, do you understand?" The analyst nodded frantically. "Why, yes, sir." Marcus stepped into the hallway, only to nearly collide with the sergeant. "Marcus," the sergeant said, deadly serious. "We have a problem." Marcus braced himself. "What now?" "It's the woman," he said. "She's talking to someone." "Talking to who?" Marcus asked. The sergeant swallowed. "There's no one in the room with her." Marcus's heart dropped. He sprinted toward the interview wing, the sergeant close behind. As they approached, they heard it, a faint whispering leaking out from under the door. Two voices. The woman's, and something else. Marcus slowly pushed the door open. The woman sat with her hands folded neatly on the table. Her eyes were closed, her lips moving rapidly. But what made Marcus freeze was the shadow. A dark, distorted silhouette on the wall behind her. A shape that did not match her body. A shape with a stretched neck and a face too long to be human. The shadow was nodding, responding to her movement. Marcus whispered, "Turn the lights on." The sergeant flicked the switch. The room flooded with brightness, and the shadow didn't disappear. It stayed, unchanged, unmoving except to breathe. The woman's eyes snapped open. Her pupils were too big, nearly swallowing the irises. She smiled. "You're late, detective." Marcus felt his blood turn cold. "You were talking to someone," he said softly. "Who was it?" She tilted her head, the smile stretching unnaturally again. "He's been waiting for you." Marcus swallowed. "Who?" Her smile widened even more, exposing too many teeth, sharp, small, crowded like rows of needles. "The one in the wires," she whispered. "The one that watches every screen." Marcus took a single step back. The shadow behind her stretched longer, almost reaching across the room toward him. Then the lights flickered again. And this time, the bulbs shattered. The room fell black. The sergeant swore loudly. Marcus reached for his flashlight, but before he could turn it on, the woman's voice echoed in the dark, right in front of him. "You can't stop something that's already inside." A cold breath touched his ear. Then, a hand, not human, not warm, brushed his neck. Marcus stumbled back, heart pounding. He flicked on his flashlight. The woman was sitting exactly where she had been. Calm, silent, smiling, but the shadow behind her was gone. Or worse, It had moved, and Marcus didn't know where it went. The flashlight beam trembled in Marcus Hale's hand, not because he was weak, but because what he had just felt on his neck did not belong in any normal reality. The woman sat motionless again, like she had been reset. Her smile was soft now, almost gentle, like she was waiting for him to speak. The sergeant slowly backed toward the door. "Marcus," he whispered, "we need backup. We need." "No," Marcus said sharply. "We don't bring more people into this. Whatever this thing is, it jumps. It watches. It waits." He stepped closer to the woman, though his instincts screamed to stay far away. "What happened to you?" he asked quietly. "Before all this, before the cat, before the camera." She blinked once. "He found me." "Who?" She didn't answer him. Instead, her gaze drifted above Marcus's shoulder, to something he couldn't see. The sergeant whispered again. "She's looking at something. Right behind you." Marcus didn't turn. He refused to. Not after what brushed him earlier. Instead, he spoke to her without breaking eye contact. "What does he want?" Her smile faded slowly, replaced by something mournful. "He wants to see. He always wants to see. Through us. Through anything with a lens." Marcus felt a cold ripple run down his spine. Everything made sense in a way he didn't want it to. The glitch. The face. The whisper. The new video file. The shadow. This thing wasn't inside her. It wasn't inside the camera. It was inside everything that watched. The woman leaned forward suddenly. "Marcus," she whispered, voice almost childlike. "It knows you're afraid." He swallowed and tightened his grip on the flashlight. "Everyone would be afraid," he said. "But you're special," she whispered. "He likes you." The sergeant cursed under his breath. "Marcus, we're leaving. Now." "No," Marcus said again. But his voice shook this time. The overhead lights flickered back to life all at once, but they didn't glow the usual warm yellow. They glowed white, too white, like hospital lights or camera flashes. The woman covered her eyes. Something hissed, and then every computer monitor, every phone screen, every reflective surface in the hallway outside clicked on by themselves. Dozens of screens, all flickering, all lighting up with static. And then a single message appeared on every screen at once. "Look at me." The sergeant panicked. "Shut them off. Shut everything off." Officers scrambled down the hallway, slamming switches, unplugging cords, covering screens with jackets. But each device that went dark instantly flickered back on, brightness increasing, like something was forcing its way out. Marcus stepped into the hall, heart pounding so loud he could hear it in his ears. One of the monitors closest to him glitched, static twisting, rearranging, and the pale face appeared again. Not smiling, not blinking, just staring. "Marcus," it whispered from every speaker in the building. "I see you." The sergeant grabbed Marcus's arm. "We're evacuating the station. Now." Before Marcus could respond, every light in the building blew out at once. Darkness swallowed the halls. Officers screamed. Something moved in the dark, slithering, shifting through wires, crawling behind walls. A whisper slid across the ceiling. "She belongs to me. Now you do too." Then a sharp crack echoed from the interrogation room. Marcus spun around just in time to see the woman's body jerk violently upward, lifted by nothing visible. Her head snapped back, eyes rolled white, mouth opening impossibly wide again. A horrible, wet sound filled the hallway, and she screamed. Not like a human, not like an animal, but like a microphone feeding back. A distorted electronic shriek that rattled the vents and buzzed every device. Her shadow returned on the wall behind her, except now it was huge, tall enough to reach the ceiling. Twisted, bent backward, and staring directly at Marcus. He froze. It raised one long, fingerless limb, and pointed at him. The woman's body dropped limply to the floor. The shadow vanished again, and all at once the lights snapped back to normal. The screens were black, silent, inactive, As if nothing had happened, the sergeant slowly approached the woman's body. "Is she alive?" Marcus whispered. Before the sergeant could check, the woman's eyes shot open. This time bright, glowing white. She looked at Marcus, and in a voice that was not hers, she said, "It's your turn." The sergeant tried to pull Marcus back, but something grabbed Marcus's ankle. Cold, hard, metallic. A cable. A thick black cable had wrapped itself around his boot. It yanked hard. Marcus fell to the floor. More cables shot out from under the interrogation table. Wiring, cords, power lines, curling like fingers around his legs, his waist, his wrist. He struggled, panicked, clawing at the floor. The sergeant grabbed him, trying to pull him free. "Help! Somebody help!" But the cables were too strong. They dragged Marcus toward the woman on the floor, toward her open, waiting eyes, toward the shadow that was no longer on the wall, but crawling along the floor toward him. Marcus screamed as the cables pulled harder, and then, everything went black. Darkness swallowed Marcus whole, not just around him, but inside him. It felt thick, like he had fallen into ink. He couldn't see his hands, couldn't feel the floor, couldn't even tell if he was breathing. For a terrifying moment, he thought he was dead. Then a voice slid across the darkness like a blade on glass. "Open your eyes." Marcus tried, but nothing changed. Still black, still endless. But he heard something else. A faint scratching. No typing. Keys tapping rapidly in the void around him. "What do you want?" he whispered. The voice answered immediately. "To see." "To see what?" Marcus asked, heart pounding. Everything went silent for a moment. Then the voice spoke again, louder, clearer, echoing from everywhere at once. "To see through you." A blinding white flash exploded in front of him. Marcus shielded his face instinctively, and when the light faded, he was no longer floating. He was standing in the middle of the police station hallway. But everything was wrong. The walls were covered in flickering screens. Every screen showed him, Marcus, standing exactly where he stood now. But each version of him looked slightly different. One was breathing faster. One looked terrified. One looked emotionless. One stared at him with pitch-black eyes. He spun around. Every angle, every screen. Hundreds of versions of himself watching him. "What are you?" Marcus demanded. His voice cracked. "What do you want from me?" A low hum vibrated through the floors. The screens shifted. Every version of Marcus opened its mouth at the same time. Then they all whispered together, "Let me in." Marcus backed away, horrified. "No, I'm not letting you inside my mind." But one screen flickered violently. The image twisted, stretched. Then the pale, inhuman face appeared again. Closer than ever. So close it filled the whole screen. Its lips peeled back in a grotesque, hungry smile. "You're already mine." Marcus stumbled back, and slammed into something solid. He turned. It was the woman. Except she wasn't herself. Her eyes were pure white now. Her mouth hung open, trembling like something was trying to push its way out from inside her. She grabbed Marcus's face with ice-cold hands. When she spoke, her voice layered with the creature's voice and her own at the same time. "You should not have watched." The world shattered. Glass exploded from the screens. The hallway cracked like a broken mirror. The lights burst overhead, and Marcus felt something slide into his head. Not physically, but mentally. Flooding him with images he didn't understand. Wires twisting like veins. Cameras blinking like eyes. Screens breathing. Voices whispering from inside electrical socket. A figure made of static standing in the corner of every room he'd ever been in. Watching. Always watching. He screamed. But the sound came out glitchy, distorted, mechanical. He dropped to his knees, gripping his skull as pain tore through him like electricity. The woman collapsed too, twitching violently as if the creature was using her like a broken speaker. Then everything froze. Silence. Stillness. A single click echoed through the hallway. Like a camera shutter. Then another click, and another. Rapid, like someone taking photos of him. Marcus lifted his head, slowly, terrified, because he knew he wasn't alone. At the end of the hallway stood a figure, tall, thin. Its body flickered like a dying TV signal. Its head snapped in his direction. No face, only static, and on its chest, a glowing red record icon. It raised one long, skeletal arm. A camera lens opened in its palm, and it whispered, "Smile." A burst of white filled his vision, and the world cut to black. When Marcus opened his eyes again, he was lying on the floor of the police station. Officers were surrounding him, shaking him, shouting his name. The sergeant knelt next to him. "Marcus, Marcus, can you hear me?" Marcus gasped for air. Everything felt wrong, like his body wasn't fully his. He looked around quickly. The woman was gone. The screens were off. The lights were normal. The cables were still. Where is she?" Marcus whispered. The sergeant shook his head. "She's dead." "Marcus, she died the moment the lights went out." Marcus's blood turned cold. The sergeant continued, confused and frightened. "You were on the ground, convulsing. We thought you were dying. What happened? What did you see?" Marcus opened his mouth to answer, but a sharp, static hiss cut through his ears. Inside his head, from deep behind his eyes. Then a whisper followed. "Don't tell them." Marcus froze, eyes wide, breath shaking, because the voice wasn't coming from the room, or from a device, or from the air. It was coming from inside him. It had gotten in. The sergeant leaned closer. "Marcus? Talk to me. What happened?" Marcus forced a shaky smile. "Nothing," he whispered. "Nothing happened." The voice inside his mind laughed softly. A glitchy, broken chuckle. Marcus closed his eyes. He knew the truth. It wasn't over. It would never be over. Because now, every screen he looked at, every reflection, every lens, something stared back, waiting, watching, recording.